Welcome to my 10-minute drawing challenge, and the idea of this is to give some practice for when I'm next going to do location sketching, and when we only have a very limited time to sit and draw, and we're just trying to capture with bare gestural lines the essence of the scene in front of us. So here's Windsor Castle on a glorious sunny day. In fact, I've just filmed the 5-minute challenge, so what I'm really hoping is that 10 minutes will feel like luxury in terms of time to draw this scene. And you'll hear the chimes come in from a timer when 10 minutes is up. Starting the time now. I'm videoing this in real time, so this is the speed I'm drawing. I learned from my 5-minute challenge that it is important to draw lines as long as you can draw them so that you create as much of the scene as quickly as possible, but it's also important not to go too far. We don't want to really take the lines beyond the direction that they're meant to be going. I'm working on this tower that's in the center. It's nicely positioned. Gives me a chance to establish a scale and proportions, and then I can use those for the rest of the drawing that spreads out left and right and below this tower. There is so much detail here that I would normally really enjoy drawing, and the challenge with a very fast sketch is to know what to leave out and what to include. So there's all this beautiful stonework and rough stones and dressed stones, and these windows are beautifully sort of set back into the really thick walls, and it's the sort of detail I normally really enjoy drawing, but in this instance it's not what I'm doing. So I really just want to capture the overall effect of the tower, of the windows. I'm not sure what stonework I'll suggest, but I will leave that till later when I can see how much time I've got left after I've basically drawn the outline to worry about things such as texture. The most important thing is to just get the overall outline drawn in. It's a bit like in a painting with a time limit. You really want to make sure you cover the canvas, so I'm doing the drawing equivalent of that. But drawing quickly mustn't equate to drawing carelessly, because I still want this to work out and to look like a credible picture of this part of Windsor Castle. So all the perspective lines have to be accurate. The relationships of the various shapes of the castle to each other need to line up in my drawing pretty much as they do in the reference photo. So I've got this gate that's to the left of the tower, and if you look carefully at what I've drawn compared to what's actually in the reference photo, you can see that I am just drawing the effect. I'm just suggesting, really using the shadows more than anything else to suggest what the actual forms are. And again, I want to get the shadows in this archway in the gate that's set in the wall, because shadows are a really great way to very quickly define a space and a shape, and also the light, and just provide some general visual interest as well. But I'm going up on this left hand side and doing this square tower that butts onto our more rounded tower. I'm not really happy with the proportions of this. I've gone a bit wide and a bit high. Having taken it too wide made me go a bit higher than I really should have. But it's not the sort of thing that's really super noticeable if you're not comparing closely to the reference photo. And now I think I better get this round tower. Now this round tower is the sort of spot that for me, it's going to be tempting to take it out too wide. I need to get the foreshortening of this tower as it curves away from us nice and tight. So I'm a little more cautious with how long I draw my lines here, and using the window spacing to help discipline me where to stop that curve. And then paying attention to details such as these windows are in effect dropped slightly below the windows on the tower to the left is an important detail to notice. It doesn't look nearly as fast as it felt when I actually drew it. Now, this section here is just a little less obvious, a little more finicky to work out exactly what's happening with this wall here. I don't position it quite as accurately as I would have liked, but again, it's not the sort of detail that is going to be obvious. It's not like an inaccurate perspective line, so I'm not too worried about it. So now I'm thinking I'll get the rest of the castle finished, and then I'm really able to focus on what's happening in the lower third of our scene, and then worry about what, if any, details I'm going to do in terms of shade or stonework. So the closer section of this scene ends in a small courtyard with a lot of garden and plant matter growing up all around it that's catching the light. So I'm really wanting to suggest with my line work that this is a very different substance to the architecture. So I'm deliberately exaggerating the sort of curved, bumpy nature of the outline of the plants, and also coming in dark with some of the shading here. So there's another doorway here to put in. It's not super clear exactly what's happening. There's a fair bit of obscuring of detail by the plants, but it is just gestural drawing, and so that also gives me a lot of leeway to not have to be too precise. And I decide that I've got time, and it is best for the drawing to put some shade into this or onto this. Again, I just have my pen and I have to do it really quickly, and it's the sort of thing where once you start, there's a certain amount that you need to do for it to work. But what I'm particularly trying to do, I don't want to make it possibly even as dark as what it is in the reference photo, but it's where the various different tones come up against each other, where you've got a darker tone against a lighter tone. That's where we have to pay attention to make sure that we get that shift, we get that contrast, because that helps us to read the overall shape of the building or of the object in relation to the sun. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to pay particular attention where the shade goes from darker shade to lighter shade, or where in fact it goes from lighter shade to no shade at all, and to create that contrast as strong as I can. 2 minutes to go. So now I'm having to make some very quick decisions about
trying to work out
exactly
what I'm going to do here and
effect
how much detail I'm going to draw.
put these last lines.
Looking at the clock, there's a couple of minutes left at this point, but so I'm thinking about this stonework, and I decide I'm going to suggest the dressed stones. And I've decided I'm not going to do the smaller fill stones, because then I'll get too bogged down in detail. But it's nice to have some stones to give the sense of a castle. And it just helps the brain connect that this is all made of stonework. And yes, I know what a castle looks like, and this is a castle. It's giving the brain clues to be able to presume over the rest of the drawing.
Well, I'm in my final minute. Quick look, this is where sometimes we discover that we've left out something significant, something on the roof, or I want the silhouette of the castle to be good, so that's all done. Just put a little more shade here. So I think I'm just going to use this last bit of time just to adjust some of the shades and get a little bit of this darkest tone in place. And now I'm looking at the clock more than I'm looking at my drawing, so that probably means I've done enough. Oh, a little bit of shade there's needed. There's my chime, and there's my 10-minute Windsor Castle. What do you think? How do I feel about the lines, the proportions? I can see a few things that aren't quite right here, but it was a quick drawing, and I'm happy with my suggestion of shade. I think that's helped to give it a three-dimensional look. I didn't have time to do that in my 5-minute drawing, which I think made it look a little bit flat. And I think I've put just enough line work in to suggest what's happening, and I'm really pleased I put this hint of stonework in up here and down here. So there we go. 10 minutes is all we need for a drawing. And remember, if you want to have a go drawing this, then go to my community page and you'll find this there. Print off and have a go yourself. Have fun. See you next time. Bye.